Good evening. It is 6 p.m. and we're beginning this evening with an executive session for 10 minutes. The purpose of the executive session is to evaluate the qualifications of applicants for public employment and to discuss with legal counsel potential litigation and the legal or financial risks of a course of action. We will return at 6:10 p.m. to begin our special meeting. Good evening. It is 6:11 p.m. Our executive session adjourned at 6:03 p.m. I'm calling this special meeting to order. We will begin with a roll call for attendance. I will say each board member's name, and if present, they will indicate present. Director Gregory.
Present.
Director Song.
Present.
Director Clark.
Present.
Vice President Cook. Vice President Cook, we will wait for just a moment to see if we can get him in on video. Okay. Currently, Vice President Cook is absent, and I am present. Director Gregory, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to go back to our last section, which is our roll call, and see if Vice President Cook is in attendance.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Welcome to our audience. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. We thank those of you who have come to this meeting and those who are viewing via our live stream. The purpose of the special meeting is to approve a consent agenda. Director Clark, would you mind reading our land acknowledgement?
Certainly. We acknowledge that we are gathered upon the ancestral lands of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe who historically lived throughout the area between the Cascade Mountains and Puget Sound.
Thank you very much, Director Clark. We now move to the consent agenda. Is there any items that anybody wants pulled? Seeing as none.
I would like to pull the vouchers, if possible.
Item 2.05.
Sorry, I'm trying to pull things up as I'm going. Yes, I believe that's correct. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. 2.05.
I move approval of 201 through 208 minus 205.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve to approve a consent agenda items 2.01 through 2.08 without 2.05. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as there is none, there is a motion on the floor for the approval of items of the consent agenda item 2.01 through 2.08 with exception of 2.05. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve item 2.05 vouchers.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded for approval of item 2.05 vouchers. We are now open for discussion.
All right, I have a few questions on some like finance related stuff, which I think applies to the vouchers that we have here. Most likely they touch at least a few of the items that I'm going to be discussing here. The first one that I have here is the school supplies. I was not aware, I don't know if the rest of this board was aware of the total spend on the district side for these school supplies. My understanding was that it was going to be a majority done by the community-based organizations in and around Kent. The amount that I have received from looking online is that the amount KSD is spending is $516,000. The item that we voted on was just a line item and didn't have a dollar amount attached to it when I looked at it, which to me seems a little bit off, just based on the large dollar amount that this is. And obviously, you know, we have within our rules the $25,000 limit of things that we can approve. or things that can be done without direct approval from the board. And so to me, it feels like this is going against that to some extent. I mean, that's over 20 times the amount of money that we would be required to approve. What is the reasoning behind that being tucked in there without having it being called out directly? And then also, I'm just curious, who was it that I guess decided to put this in there without having notified us? And how much is being spent from the community-based organizations versus us? Like, what is the percentage on each side of that?
So let me first, there are 3 questions in there that I heard. First question, the budget was approved on June 25th with that, I think it was page 6 on the budget presentation. That's first. And your second question was related to board policy. So you followed board policy to pass that budget on June 25th, which included that. The other question was, I think it was the amount. We did have, I believe, a work session where we talked about equity, if you recall, and we wanted to make sure every student in our district had the supplies that they needed across the district, regardless of where their address or zip code was.
I remember that specific one because I asked if they were good Crayola crayons and not the
That's
cheap
correct.
crayons. And we did talk about that. The principals were brought in and the teachers about what supplies and the actual brands to make sure that they were good quality.
Correct.
I remember that.
In addition, Vice President Cook, we talked about our community partners who do support us with supplies. In fact, there's Pack the Bus, I believe, coming up, are now coordinating with us in what are those supplies that we need that are consistent across the district from an equity perspective to make sure our students have access to a guaranteed and viable curriculum no matter their zip code.
I don't have any problem with us making sure that we're doing things equitably. The problem that I have with this has nothing to do with equity. The problem that I have with this is that I was unaware of the dollar amount. And it's not that I'm against us doing so. I likely would have voted for us doing so. But when we are talking about being transparent about how we want to make sure that our community knows that we are communicating with them appropriately, this is the kind of stuff that really puts a dagger in the heart of that goal, right? And so my concern is that I don't understand why it was not identified specifically as that dollar amount, and it makes me concerned. How much did we approve? Because there was not a dollar amount listed, as far as I was aware, stating how much we were going to spend on that. It should have been an agenda item separately, just so that we could discuss it, make sure that the community is aware, both ourselves. In the past, I believe that's how we have done most of our spend on that sort of stuff. I understand this is part of a budget. We've got, tons of line items in there. But as it's something that we are promoting to our community in a different way than probably just about anything else that we have in here. If you look at all the rest of the items that we are talking about within this, none of those items are things that we are out promoting. This particular one is. And to me, that is a little concerning that we are not identifying that in a forthright manner, so that even like myself on the board wasn't aware of that dollar amount and wasn't aware of that dollar amount until a community member was able to find it somehow. And so to me, that's a little off. I'm just not super keen on us, on myself at least. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I don't like finding things out after the fact, after I've already voted on something. So that's my concern with it. Obviously, we've already voted for it, but it seems off to me, and I would like to hear my fellow board members' thoughts on voting on something like this without having it been being identified beforehand.
So, Vice President Cook, this is Director Gregory. In the work session that we had about this conversation, because I did ask the dollar amount, I remember it specifically because I was I was curious as to, are we getting a discount on them? Are we buying them in bulk? And how much was this going to cost? So I was aware of I think it's $500,000 is what the spend is for all of the students. There's 24,000 students, and that cost is allocated. But we did specifically talk about the cost, and we also did specifically talk about the input, because I too was concerned that we were going to buy Rose Art crayons, and I need Crayola, and we were making sure that we did have the name brands, but all teachers and principals were included in that conversation about they wanted this brand of pencil box, and there was very specific information. I do recall that because I wanted to make sure we didn't have Rose Art crayons. I mean, I love their markers, but not the crayons. I know, I'm sorry.
Okay, so are we talking about the work session on June 11th about the district budget?
There was a specific session that was talking about this program, and they actually brought an example of the school supplies. Yeah, it was in the strategic plan update.
Yeah.
Because this is one of our strategic goals and initiative, or
Yes.
bullet points underneath one of our strategic plans. I would also say that there's, so one, that a community member saw this, I think would actually speak to its transparency. Two, I would say that there are many things, if I may, and I wish that Raul was here because he's going to say this much more eloquently.
He is.
He is, okay. You're going to, I think you would say this much more eloquently than I do, but there's many things that are more than $25,000 that we wouldn't vote on. We don't vote on all of the chairs that are ordered in all of our schools. We don't approve the playground and the equipment in every school. We don't approve they go on. And in fact, the reason I can't number them is because they're part of the larger budget and they're put into the overall plan. I think we would be crippled as a district if we had to vote for every light bulb, pencil, and pencil box, specifically, actually, pencil and pencil box today, as a board. And so that's why things are put in the policy. And that's why going to the sessions on the budget are so important and reviewing that. And we have so much time over the year to do that, is because all of that information is there to be seen and to be discussed. And that's why those work sessions were put in place for those who chose to attend.
I understand that. I'm looking at that meeting on, it looks like it was May 7th. So there was roughly a month and a half, possibly nearly 2 months time lapse between when that was discussed and when it was actually voted on. And to your point as to us not voting on things, that's just categorically false. We actually are required by law to vote on everything. Now, do things get added together and put into a more concise manner so that we don't have to vote on each individual item? Of course. But to state that we are not voting on things is just categorically false.
Well, that was the budget that we voted on.
This, and I'm looking at the strategic plan myself currently because obviously you had brought that up, and in this strategic plan there is not a call out at any point within this that says anything about the $517,000 or $516,000, whatever the amount ended up being. None of that is in here, and so what your comment is stating that a person within our community would need to watch that meeting, listen to us discussing it, hear what was said, and then that's how they would know what we were spending it on. And to me, that seems a little off. We shouldn't, if we're going to be discussing something like that, and it's within the strategic plan update, wouldn't that dollar amount be important for us to share at some point in some sort of document outside of a person requesting it from outside of us?
I have a couple of questions. I think one, I agree that having the lack of clarity around the variability of how much something would cost is something that I'd be curious to know about. But could we have Raul come up and kind of just give us a brief recap of what that number was, how that process worked out?
So I'm going to have Mr. Pendergraut come on up and share with the board the process for adopting a budget. In that his presentation, he'll talk about items within the budget, which he did share during his presentation. So, Mr. Pendergraut.
So in addition to, good evening. So in addition to the referred work session where it was discussed, there were at least about four occasions where it was included in the presentation and specifically called out school supplies for all children. Although the dollar amount were not included on it, and the format in which the budget should be approved is very highly regulated by the state. And I would read to you a RCW 28A505.090, which states that every school district budget shall be prepared, submitted, and adopted in the format prescribed by the OSPI. The budget classification contained in said format shall be in accordance with the accounting manual for public school districts published by the OSPI. Budgets prepared and adopted in a format other than the prescribed by the OSPI shall not be official and will have no legal effect. So we presented to you on June 25th a format that is prescribed by OSPI by virtue of Resolution 1697, which you approved. Anything other than that has no legal effect. And so therefore, the budget that you approved, which included the $516,000 of school supplies for all students, has been submitted to you and you adopted appropriately.
And Mr. Perringo, just to make sure, I would hate to state something incorrect. That budget also includes things like chairs and equipment for our schools and things like that that are put together. And so we don't approve each of those items separately throughout the year.
The requirement, yes, you're correct. And the requirement for budget approval is the appropriation. It's not the line-by-line item. And that is also required by law. It's written in the law where it says that the board approved the appropriation for each fund. In this case, the school supplies for children, for all children, is in the general fund, which is specifically called out in the resolution.
Another clarifying question. So if you need to change that budget, and we've seen that throughout this last year, if you have to change that budget, you would come back to us and request more money, or you would tell us, hey, we're putting this money back into the general fund, and we see that throughout the year. Is that correct?
That is correct. With a certain limit, if for any reason that the district operates beyond what you approve, beyond the appropriation, with some limits, we will come back to you, and that is commonly known as budget extension.
Correct.
And at least in the last 3 years that I've been here, we've only done that once.
But if money is coming back in, like you're going to move money from one area, let's say it's in the general fund, and you need more money over here, you would come to us and ask for us to approve that. You're not just moving the money around without approval.
No, generally, the movement within the $570 million, that does not require any board approval. But if we are going to be spending beyond the 570, that it would require board approval.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, again, not challenging or questioning any part of the process. I recall this being done correctly. I think my, comment in addition to what I think Director Cook was alluding to is also, do we have a process right now where when we do make some of these large purchases of it being published?
Well, we do have a process in accordance with your policy. And we basically, in this case, we comply with your policy.
Okay, yeah, because I think that's just one of the issues that a lot of people have brought up, not just in our school district, but I've noticed in other school districts as well, with that transparency piece of, sure, we do approve these line items, we do go through that process, but sometimes those figures aren't presented to us at the start, because like with the school supplies, it's really hard to forecast what that actual or the final dollar amount might look like. Is there any way that maybe we could, as a board later on, figure out a way to improve the way that we address or communicate that transparency?
Well, I think the manner in which that was done in this particular case was the work session. Mm-hmm. I think it was mentioned it was back in May. if there are any other proposed changes on it, then, I would refer back to the superintendent on it, so.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of accessibility for the public. If they're just curious, like, is there a way that they could just simply go onto the website and actually find what those figures were after the purchases were made?
After their, the vouchers,
The
Yeah.
voters.
yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh, no,
they-
no,
yeah.
sorry.
Voucher prices.
Like your example with like when we're buying like all the chairs, those
Yeah.
typically aren't included on there. Or are they? Because I don't remember seeing any of those on the vouchers.
When we purchase furnitures within the bounds of the policy, they are included in the budget. So in the 570 million, I mean, I cannot tell you exactly how much were for chairs and how much were for paper, but I could just imagine that if those were the priorities for this year, that some of them may include chairs and furnitures and papers and pencils and so on and so forth.
You might see them under co-op, I think.
That's why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Co-op.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perango.
Thank you.
That was all I had on that one. If anyone else has anything to discuss on it, I don't know.
Seeing no other comments?
Okay, I'll move on to my other concerns. So, as you brought up, the lack of my attendance on the May 7th meeting, I just wanted to point out that I will not be attending meetings in person due to falsehoods that have been stated from the dais. And obviously aggressive wording that is still yet to be addressed. I'm still awaiting a Title IX complaint filed against our president due to the inflammatory words that she's used. So at that point, I just wanted to make sure that I was pointing that out, as I won't be attending in person until that Title IX complaint is complete. And so just so that everyone here is aware, as well as any of the community members that might be around, that they are aware as well. They won't be seeing me available for this for a bit of time until that is taken care of. But I want to move on to another
Vice President
issue
Cook.
that was brought up,
Vice President Cook.
some stipends. And the question that I have on that is there's some people discussing it online that they went through and they obviously looked through all of the different dollar amounts that people are getting paid, and which is public record, of course, so it's available for anyone to take a look at. And these stipends seem to be higher than what we've seen in the past, from what, at least from the layman's interpretation of it, like myself. I was wondering who approved these stipends, and it sounds like these stipends may not be what is normal. Is this the typical amount of a stipend? Is it the typical reason for a stipend? And what are the typical reasons for our district to be giving stipends to our employees?
First, I would like to recognize Superintendent Vela. He had a comment earlier that he wasn't able to make.
Yes, thank you, President Margell. The first was to your first comment. That's not a part of our agenda. I wanted to state that for the record. Your next comment, I need clarification. I believe I heard who approves stipends and the amounts, and that's what I heard.
Yeah.
I will
That's
tell you
correct.
that stipends are contractual. They are bargained, and so that's first. And then who approves them? As you know, once contracts are ratified, boards do take actions on them.
Okay. Yeah, I just, I'm unsure of that a little bit, because it seemed like quite a bit of money. And it seemed to be a little bit off from what I've been told was normal. Now, obviously, I am not someone who works in that space. I don't work in finance. I don't work in HR or anything like that. And so it's something that was a little disconcerting, finding out that it was such a high amount. And you're saying that it's bargained. So is there some sort of documentation that we would have that I could review as far as that goes, so that I could see what the bargaining ended up bringing up, so that I could see how these stipends were brought about and how they were bargained and that sort of thing? Is that something that I would be I would have available to me?
Which you have access to the contracts that are online for every bargaining group, which has the dollar amounts of each stipend.
Okay, so all
that's public.
stipends, it is your claimed that all stipends were part of bargaining, and there are no stipends that were outside of that. Is that correct?
Your question was, who approves them? And the answer is, it's part of a negotiations and bargaining, and they reach an agreement, which I also said you then take action on after they're ratified by their members.
Well, I understand that. I just wanted to clarify that
Sure.
you're stating that all the stipends that are within that, any stipend would be something that is part of bargaining. So there wouldn't be any stipend given outside of a bargain. Is that correct?
The stipends are within those bargaining groups. Not all stipends are the same. Not all bargains are the same. And so that's why I'd say refer to those contracts.
So I understand the contracts. I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. So your statement saying that we are giving these stipends out as part of their bargain, there's never a time, as far as what you're saying, there's never a time that there would be a stipend given that was not part of a bargain. Is that correct?
I think I'll just leave my comment for the record as I've stated.
Okay, so, all right. Well, I don't know how the rest of our board feels about that, but that doesn't seem like a very strong answer to me. I'll leave it there just because, obviously I'm not going to belabor the point on that. But I did have another question on something else, unless someone else has any concerns about the stipends issue.
As long as it's about 2.05 vouchers.
Oh, yeah, it's certainly about vouchers.
Okay.
So the last one that I was concerned about is the high dollar amount that we've moved from capital projects into other things. So it's much higher than previous, the amount that we've been moving. So we transferred this money out of our capital projects fund into other points. What led to this? And I would imagine this would be something that we definitely paid vouchers for, because it looks like it's $3.625 million. Am I understanding that correctly? That we transferred out of capital projects?
So I would have to do some research on that, but the vouchers are what we've already expended. And so your question is, was it moved or where was it moved from? I definitely would have to come back and get you that information.
Okay,
Yes.
so you don't have it on hand right now. You don't know
That
why
is correct.
$3.625 million was moved from our capital projects fund to other funding projects. Is that right?
What we have is a voucher under consent for the board to approve.
I understand. I'm asking you a question about what led to those vouchers. Does that make
can
sense,
we-
or am I not explaining it properly?
Could we clarify, maybe the process would help, is if we have a project that is a capital project and we need to pay for the work that happens, maybe how that looks, and so is that the question that you're asking?
I just am curious, obviously our superintendent is unaware of the $3.625 million where that that it came from capital projects. I'm not sure if he knew that, or where it went to, or what led to us increasing that amount. From what I've been told from others, it sounds like the typical amount of us moving money out of one project fund, so to say, into another is around $700,000 to $800,000, and this is multiples of that.
Well,
So it's much higher than what we've done in the past, and so that's where my concern is.
Can I ask for clarification? Because I want to make sure I'm following along too. Is the question, for example, we approve the voucher for a capital project, let's just say a new roof, right? Is the question that we approved it for this roof and that you found that money was taken away from that project and then diverted and funded another purchase that was not related to capital funding?
That's correct.
Okay.
So it was originally, I guess, earmarked or however you want to call it, for capital projects. It was meant to be spent on, boilers or whatever, because we like to talk about boilers here. And after, for whatever happened, which I still haven't had an answer as to what led to that money being pulled from there and moved into other locations.
So let me.
It was then moved into another location. Would it be possible for us to speak with our finance department to get
let
an
me do
indication
this.
from them on what led to this?
Vice President Cook, let me get Mr. Perengrau to come up and talk about what I believe your question is, so that we're clear as a full board.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm also assuming that we probably have a lot more happening during the summer because of all the amazing work that our team, our capital projects team is getting done while our students are away. So I'm guessing that during the summer there tends to be bigger, but let's hear from Mr. Parango.
Good evening again. So I won't be able to speak about the 3.6 million that was referred to because I didn't have time to research it. However, what I could tell you is that it's a normal course of doing business to transfer cash. It's not the budget that we're transferring. So here is the reason why that works, how that works. The money is earmarked for the bond or the bond project or the levy project. They are recorded under Fund 20, which is capital projects.
Right.
There are expenses where you cannot charge directly into Fund 20. That is the limitation that is established by OSPI. Meaning like if I were to pay $200,000 of bill, there are expenses where I cannot charge directly into Fund 20. OSPI requires us to pay that or to pay the vouchers out of the general fund. And as a result of that, we move cash from Fund 20 to the general fund in order for us to be able to, to backfill what was paid by the general fund. In no way where we're going to be taking away bond money and use them for general fund purposes. That is a violation of the law.
Could you give an example maybe of an item that we wouldn't be able to take out of Fund 20 specifically, but we have to do where we move it, like, I don't know, maybe buying carpeting, that we have to then take it? What are some examples of those things that we would need to do that?
There are many examples, but one that comes to mind are, let's say, for example, software. In our levy, tech levy, it is allowed to spend money on softwares or, in some cases, subscription for technology. When we pay the bill, we cannot pay them directly out of Fund 20. We have to pay them out of the general fund. But the general fund, when we pay for it, it needs to be backfilled. And thus, we actually move whatever amount that we pay every month, we would transfer that cash from Fund 20 to the general fund, dollar for dollar.
And that's because we have to account in Fund 20 exactly what that looks like. You can't charge against it directly. You have to prove that you spent that money and here is the receipt for it, and then you get a refund, right, from that fund.
Yes, and again, it is a limitation of the account code structure that is prescribed by OSPI.
Correct.
Even if you were to charge them directly to Fund 20, it's going to give you all sorts of error, or it would not even take it. And so, well, we have to pay the bill. In order for us to pay the bill, we have to pay them out of the general fund. And then we would have to backfill them with cash. This is the reason why you're going to see transfers from transfer of cash from Fund 20 to Fund 01.
And it's not a diversion of funds. It's really balancing the budget because we had to pay directly out of our general fund, out of our general checking account.
That is correct.
And we're waiting for savings we got to pull it from savings, is basically to help people at home understand. I have a checking account, I pay all my bills out of it. I have a savings for my carpet, I have a savings for my car, I have a savings for this, and I'm pulling it out of that savings account to re-put the money back into my checking account.
That is correct.
That
yes.
is what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Is that what Director Cook's referring to?
Like I said,
it is similar to what I'm talking about. The specific thing that I'm talking about is the interfund transfers between different funds, right? And so the Capital Projects Fund was, looked at as something they could take money from and move it into somewhere else. And it looks like, Mr. Parango, you had an email that was sent to you, I believe, on the 11th from someone in the community asking about this specific issue 2 days ago. So, I guess maybe it wasn't something that needed response right away. You did respond to her on the 12th, but I was just wondering, as far as that goes, have we already moved that money back then? Is there 3.6 million seems like a lot of money, and if you're not aware of of that money having been moved. Is that typical? Are you usually not aware of multi-million-dollar moves from one fund to another fund? Is that pretty typical for most finance people?
I think those are different words than what Mr. Parengal said. Mr. Parengal, would you like to actually state?
It is a normal course of doing business for us to move those cash every month. And there are delegated authorities as in order for us to make the process seamless. I am not, if I was given the opportunity to review exactly what you are talking about, I'll be able to give you a more precise answer. But at this moment, on the spot, I have to look back into our cumulative, which is our financial records, to be able to give you a specific answer.
Okay. How long do you anticipate that taking? The reason I ask is, I've asked a multitude of times from multiple people here in the district about some issue that I come up with, and it's often, I don't find that I get the answer at any point. And so I'm just curious, like, when should I expect to have an answer on that from you?
So before I answer that, I would like to, it would help me tremendously if you would point me exactly where in the agenda or the attachment I should be looking for those numbers.
I'll make sure and send that to you via email.
Okay.
Okay, sounds like we have a path forward. Is there any additional questions? Seeing as there's none, there's a motion on the floor for approval of item 2.05 vouchers. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. All those that say nay,
Nay.
the motion passes 4-1. And with that, it is 6:48, and we are adjourned.